You should.
Hello, and we're live, and we're back. It's another day after show, which means we're back for another day after show. Hi, Neil. How are you on this fine Monday afternoon?
Doing great. Doing absolutely great. Excited to talk about the show. Got a good night's rest because we only had one set in the central time zone that we had to deal with. So yeah, we're doing great.
It was in the Eastern time zone.
Or Eastern time zone. My bad.
Yeah,
I
it's
don't
okay.
know
It
where
was,
they
it was,
are
it was a
anymore.
little later. Yeah, you just,
Yeah.
you click on the stream and you watch it, and then you go to bed after.
That's what I do.
Yeah,
That's what I
so
do.
it's
But
what we all do. That's what we're here for. Well, today we are joined by a guest who was at the show last night, and I don't know if we have much other preamble other than thanks Rick and Peter for the kind of shout out on their Arabelo radio broadcast that's happening right now.
yeah,
Columbus.
we're competing with Goose right now. Which
We are. So, we'll see how many people tune in for the first little while of this pod. But we're going to bring our guest on. We're going to start talking about it. We've got the one and only Jesse here. Hello, Jesse.
Hello.
Is this your first time on the pod? I feel like it might be your first time.
It is the first time.
Oh, welcome.
Thanks.
Not his first time podding about Goose. I feel like it's been done before, just not this pod.
I'm not here to talk about Goose. I'm here to talk about the DJ Marvin dolls.
Well, okay, hey,
you know what? That's a big reason.
Yeah,
that's a big reason why I really wanted you to come on today, because we can talk about last night's show well enough from the couch, but we can't really talk about Marv Mentals from 2 to 3 in the morning at Electric Forest this weekend. And so before we get into last night's Goose show, I want to hear all about this.
Yeah, it was so much fun. We didn't know really what to expect. I mean, we saw some of him play on like the bingo tour thing,
Yeah.
So we kind of, and I guess this was his first performance in front of people, I was told.
Yeah.
So, and it was a fucking blast. We had a nice crew of us. A lot of the Goose people and crew were there, and we were all just getting down. It was so much fun. We actually had plans to leave. We were going to start there and go see another artist, and it was just so good we didn't want to leave.
I heard, was he throwing full packs of menthol cigarettes into the crowd?
He was throwing full packs.
That's absolutely amazing.
It was hilarious. We were all rolling, dying, laughing.
I have questions.
Yeah.
How many people just ended up there? And how many people were there to see them? Because the photos I've seen are pretty sparse in terms of attendance. There had to be people who just walked up and were like, "Who the hell is this guy?" And then there had to be people knowing full well who he was.
Yeah, that exact thing happened. So it started kind of sparse because it was during Sound Tribe and Chris Lake, which is also a big EDM guy. So there was a lot going on at the time, but by the end of it, I think Sound Tribe had ended and it started filtering in, and people were like, "Who is this guy? This is amazing."
Who is Marv Mentals?
Literally that. Yeah, it was.
That's awesome. Yeah, there was a tweet that popped up from some random not Goose affiliated guy in the slightest, who was just like, this guy Marv Mentals is throwing Lucy's into the crowd at 2 a.m. What is happening, or something to that effect.
Yeah, I think the full tweet was this guy's playing psytrance at 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock in the morning. Somebody should have told him what time it was. And then he said he was throwing Lucy's into the crowd, which both things are. I mean, that's intense music for that hour. That is some really, really intense music.
Yeah,
so,
I mean, nobody told DJ Marv Mentals it was 2:15 a.m. Homeboy giving Lucy's to the crowd while ripping 90s trance. They also shout out to whoever was smoking crack, because there was apparently someone smoking crack at that set. As per that tweet.
Wasn't me.
Good.
Next question.
Good to know.
I can confirm, not me.
Okay, awesome. Love to hear it. So Marv Mentals, would see again?
Yeah, absolutely. I think he should do it much more often because it was a fucking blast. And let's not forget his outfit. The tracksuit was just unbelievable.
It's just he is a force. This is indeed the year of Big M.
It is.
You know, as it were. Well, let's talk about last night's Goose show, because that's really the secondary reason why we're all here today. But still important to talk about. Take us through the day leading up to it, or just what the crowd was like before Goose's set. And I know you said you were on the rail, which is pretty exciting.
Yeah. So Dogs in a Pile started the stage off that last night, and it was like 5. I don't know, but they pushed everything back due to the storm, which we had a pretty nasty storm for like a solid hour.
Mm-hmm.
They made everybody leave the festival grounds. So by the time we got to Dogs, it was about 6:30. They were great, by the way. Fun band. And then we just hung out there until Goose. We got up on the rail right after Dogs and just stayed put until they started. We were next to a couple on the left of us and 3 people on the right of us, and it was all their first Goose show, and they were all on the rail with us. So they were super stoked. They had a great time. We talked to them afterwards. They loved it. Yeah, the show was great. The Creatures opener. I mean, straight into the Madhavan and the 2-hole. I mean,
yeah, man,
incredible.
it was good. It was good. How big did the crowd feel? Like, were there other acts performing at the same time, or?
There were, but no one really that I'd ever heard of. So
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how much competition they had. But the crowd seemed big. But like I said, I was on the rail.
Right,
So
you were at the rail.
Yeah, I don't really know. From the pictures, it looked like it was pretty big.
Yeah,
Yeah.
big. It looked big on the webcast. The stage looked, massive.
The stage it's got to be probably one of the biggest stages I've ever played because it's fucking huge. I mean, it's just giant. It's very tall.
Yeah, like, I mean, before we talk about the music, I want to talk about the festival because, I mean, for me at least, when I look at the lineup for that show, I don't know 90% of the shit that's going on. But when I see the pictures of that place, it's just like I have to go. Like, I have to go and like see this in person. Can you talk a little bit about the festival grounds and like what sets it apart from, I don't know, like summer camp that you were just at too, I think, right?
Well. Yeah, there's a big difference. I mean, it's in the middle of like the woods basically. And the centerpiece is the Sherwood Forest where they put all the lights, and there's like multiple stages in there and all sort of art exhibits. It's just incredible, like layout. Everything's easy to get to. It is pretty massive, so there's a lot of walking involved, but it's just it's hard to even describe. It's the attention to detail that they put into every little aspect of the festival. It's just unbelievable. You can be walking through the woods and you'll find like a little tiny thing just off to the side that's just, they did that just like for someone to find, and it's just it's really awesome. I would highly recommend it, even if you're not a big electronic music fan. But yeah, it was really good. Loved it.
Love to hear it. So obviously, very predictable Creatures opener last night, but definitely the right choice for an electronic festival, I think.
Yeah.
But what were your thoughts on this first song immediately?
It was good. It had a little bit of improv in it. Didn't get too crazy, but it was a great call to open the show with it. I mean, I think we all kind of knew Creatures was going to come at some point.
Yeah, listen, I knew 2 things for certain last night: a Creatures opener and a Hot Tea closer, and those were the only 2 songs I hit on my fantasy. So
there you go, nice.
And they were my 8 and 7.
I did see that they cut Electric Avenue,
of course.
I think it was Dripfield, and then there was one other. So they cut 3 songs.
I mean, I don't know if they were intending on playing Madhavan for 25 minutes, which is, we'll talk about that. But like, this
and the
jam
set list that I saw,
awesome.
Madhavan was supposed to open. It was supposed to be Madhavan Creatures. So I don't know if they decided just to mix it up right at the beginning, or yeah.
Neil, you got anything on the Creatures before we talk about this large jam?
No, I mean, I honestly thought I knew what Creatures was coming as well. It fits. Yeah. And if you look at past like festival sets, if you go way back to like 2019 and stuff, it just felt like they were going to sneak that in there based on like what they've done in like late night sets and kind of festivals that would accept something like Creatures, right? Like when you look at Electric Forest, you're like, okay, so high likelihood of a Creatures, pretty high likelihood of a slow ready, which didn't happen. But I think back to the Creatures that they played in Chicago, and I thought for sure we were going to see a rehash of that Creatures with like the Arpeggiator Jam and like all of that stuff in this Creatures. So I was actually like kind of, I want to say I was disappointed, but I was expecting it to get full on, EDM freak out kind of thing. And it didn't go there. It was still pretty cool though. It was hot.
It was good. And then, I mean, so the Creatures fades into Madhavan, and at this point I'm thinking like, okay, we'll get like, we're gonna get a very songy set here. Like this will probably be 12, 13 minutes, what have you. And then they start going into that initial dark jam, which caught me very much by surprise. I wasn't expecting improv on that level at all during the set. And this was cool because it felt like when they emerged from that, Rick kind of cued them back into the Madhavan jam and then decided that he wasn't done. I feel like it was Rick's night last night. He was absolutely on fire, especially through this jam. 25-minute Madhavan in a 90-minute festival set at an EDM festival. That seems like an insane thing, right? Like Goose has been crushing festivals in 2023. Like I think the majority of them have had at least one improvisational highlight, which, is not something. Like a lot of festival sets last year, we're just kind of like, there's nothing I need to go back and listen to here. But this Madhavan has some, re-listen power, like this dark jam and the triumph, and then they get exploratory, Peter hits the keys. But what were you thinking during this Madhavan, Jesse?
I mean, I was losing my mind. I loved it. I liked that it had two like jam sections in it. I thought they were going to save the ending for the end of the set, to be honest. But it was a really nice treat to get that. I enjoyed it more than the summer camp shows, I guess. Just because mainly the Madhavan.
That makes sense.
Really nice treat. That was my favorite jam. So we went to Chicago on Wednesday, and I think that was the Madhavan's probably the highlight of that I saw this week for sure.
100%.
I think that's pretty fair to say. The one thing that was interesting about this Madhavan is that they walked away. This was good. I want to preface this by saying this was really, really good. But I think the coolest part of the jam, had they really just run with it, was before they returned to Madhavan. And like, oh man, it was so good. I don't know. I just love that kind of dark, weird space that they were in.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And they kind of returned, and then like it wasn't as good for a minute, and then it kind of went off the rails again. But
you mean that the first jam segment, like the initial dark, evil,
dark thing. I mean, that could have gone somewhere absolutely incredible. Like we could be having like a different conversation right now. Like instead of saying like that was a really good Madhavan, we could have been saying that was maybe the best one they played this year, or the best one they played in a while.
Like jam of the year.
Yeah.
Whoa.
But it was trending towards that territory.
Yeah.
And then they jumped out of it, and I was like, oh right, because this is like a festival set. And then they just kept going, and like that part was really surprising to me.
Well, that felt like Rick. It felt like Rick was really driving this one. We were talking a lot about the last few shows, like Chicago and Louisville. Felt a lot like Peter and Jeff were standing out in the jams. This Madhavan felt like Rick, kind of taking back control a little bit. He was the one kind of leading a lot of the charges, and it felt like, as I mentioned, it felt like after that initial dark section, when he cued it back into Madhavan, it felt like, all right, we're wrapping it up. And then maybe he had a thought like, maybe not, maybe I want to keep going here because, again, they were planning on playing a lot more songs. I'm sure they did not intend on playing a 25-minute jam at an EDM festival where they only have a 90-minute set. But, these things happen. And we got, a lengthy 2-guitar segment, Peter kind of trending back in that direction a little bit after, for the first huge chunk of this year, he was barely playing any jams on guitar. And so now I think he's kind of either he's making a conscious choice to stay on guitar for a little longer, or he's a little bit more interested in what he can do on guitar for a little while again, because there are periods where we hear Peter flip back and forth between heavy use of guitar and heavy use of keys. And so I'm liking the direction we're trending a little bit.
I gotta agree.
Yeah. You guys got anything else on this jam?
No,
Not
it was
more that could
great.
be
I
said.
mean, it wasn't
I think
like
we covered it.
Yeah, it wasn't like, the best Madhavan ever, but it was really solid and really surprising for a festival set for sure.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, it was good.
So rest of the set, kind of, you can probably get it in here. Pancakes, Kylie, pancakes, animal, and hot tea. What were your thoughts here?
I'm not the biggest Kylie cover. I mean, I've seen it, I think 4 times now. So I kind of expected it to happen, I suppose, because of the electronic aspect of the festival, but kind of wish it was just a pancakes jam personally, but that's okay. And I think right before T started, I was like, it's got to be Arcadia or T. It's got to be one of the big bangers, so kind of felt that coming. It was good though. Nothing crazy.
Yeah,
but
it
good.
It was a fun festival set. I was a little bit disappointed.
It was, yeah.
At the Kylie placement. Like, it is a festival, but I would have rather them just played like a standalone Kylie than, use the pancakes that is now definitely not getting played tomorrow night in Columbus, and not 6 minutes into pancakes, you're going to drop the Kylie. Like,
yeah.
It's one of those things where, I don't know. Sometimes those bum me out where it's just, you guys both said this already, which is you hear them go into pancakes. They just came off of like a 25-minute marathon, and you're like,
right.
Oh shit! Like they're just gonna go like ham on this, and so that's not what happened. They of course segued and said Kylie, and then back out again, and so you didn't really get the pancakes jam that you were hoping for. But I was actually surprised that they played pancakes at this. I was surprised by two things. I was surprised that they played pancakes, and I was surprised that they played nothing off of Dripfield. Nothing.
Hot tea was on Dripfield.
Well, you know what I mean. Like Hot Tea had been around for a while,
right? They didn't play Bourne, Hungersite, or Dripfield.
Yeah, it's not the same, and that's shocking to me that they didn't play any of that trio of songs. Absolutely shocking. You would think, I don't know how big the crowd was, but it's had to be sizable, and I'm sure folks in management were like, damn it, like they didn't play the album.
Yeah. So the festival is 50,000 people. So I'm assuming it had to have been at least 10,000, probably. Goose, I'm guessing more. It seemed pretty sizable for sure.
Do we know what Coach estimated the crowd at?
Probably 2 million. 80,000 maybe.
Yeah, something like that. But yeah, it's interesting to look at the set list, also in terms of, Pancakes and Madhavan were probably two of the biggest jammers not played yet on this tour. And they played the Madhavan here. And so interesting to then play Pancakes, which, for their headlining show tomorrow, where they kind of want to have these in the tank. And so, curious going into Columbus tomorrow, I feel like this is the hardest Fantasy Goose day that we've had in a little while, because no, but it's true, because we're a few shows into tour. We had a bunch of festivals a couple of weeks ago, which are generally, kind of hit or miss, but you have a pretty good idea of what might get played. But there's a lot.
Sorry, I had to put that up there. That was the pod that I was referring to.
Yeah. I love that. I love that Jive Goose can be in the chat, but can't join us on this podcast. How nice of him.
Yeah,
he's a busy guy.
I think we could have predicted what he would have said while he's on here, which I can do it actually. Like if he's watching,
please do it.
All right, real quick. There's a lot of songs they could have played instead of Kylie, man. That's what he would have said.
You nailed it. It was the. I'll be brief. I'm gonna be really quick.
Real quick.
Some of us have to work. You're literally watching this podcast right
now. Amazing.
Anyway, yeah, it's interesting to look at what they're choosing to play, and what's on the table for tomorrow, because there are also, we've been talking a lot about this the last few days in the group chat. Songs that are on a weirdly long show gap. Stuff like we haven't seen Flea or Indian Rivers since Bozeman, which is a crazy long gap, especially for something like Flea. where's Time to Flee? Like no, we're missing Jive 2 on a bigger gap again. Mist is on a pretty big gap right now. Like there's a ton of stuff that's on an abnormally large gap. So it's interesting to see how the year keeps going, how they keep approaching set lists differently.
Yeah, I sort of fully expected Mist last night too, to be honest. I assumed they were going to do, like Creatures, Mist, maybe Fish in the Sea, something, like something that would fit the EDM crowd, but I'm glad with what that they played. I was happy with it. I was having a blast.
Yeah. Neil, you got anything on the song rotation discourse?
Well, I mean, yeah, they have a lot of new songs, man, and they really, really, really want to play those new songs. And there are songs that maybe didn't even get as much play last year that are getting more this year. Like Hunger Sites, pretty much, they play 2 shows, then they play it. They play 2 shows, and then they play it. Like almost like clockwork. And then Thatch, I mean, basically gets played every other show at this point. And
it's
it's
not
a big
one on Thursday.
Yeah, well, I mean, I wouldn't have been surprised if they played it last night. We were saying this before, where it was just like they played it the show before, but they can probably play it again tonight. Which, in memory, I can't think of any other time that we've kind of said this about them, except for like maybe like Hot Tea in 2021, where it was just like play it every damn show, especially like in June or July.
It was July, yeah. Three teas and 6 shows.
3 teas and 6 shows, but they're exceeding that right now with the batch, like in this latest run. Like, I mean, it's nuts how often they play it. Single show gaps and all kinds of stuff is happening.
Yeah.
So
I thought that was interesting. So the Chicago show had a bunch of repeats of the shows that they just played in Chicago in April.
Right.
It was like, I don't think there was one unique song that they didn't play. I'd have to look back to be sure, but I was like, this is like everything they just played like 2 months ago.
Right. Which is interesting too, because, they claim that when they make the set list for a show, they look at what they played the last time they were in that city, which maybe they look at it, but it definitely doesn't affect how they write the set list.
Yeah.
I feel it's like they're like, okay, we covered that last time we were here. We're not going to cover that. But even then, that's thrown out the window because they played Escape in Montana 2 years in a row. So,
right.
So I mean, yeah, there's no way they actually do that.
They might look at it just for fun, but it doesn't affect the way they write the set list for sure.
Yeah, it's like, screw those guys. We're gonna play Escape again, which actually, I mean, I don't mind that as a cover. But no, to your point, I mean, there are right now. Let's see here. I mean, there's roughly 25 songs with more than a 10-show gap. Some of those are kind of like not often played songs, like Spirit of the Dark Horse and Labyrinth. But I mean, there are old classics in there, like Get Time to Flee. It's been 16 shows. Traveler, 17 shows. The Old Man's Boat, 18 shows.
Yeah,
that's
a weird one.
20 shows.
What was 20? Sorry, Jive Lee?
Jive Lee.
Is that the longest Lee gap ever?
It's got to be. And then, 726, 14 shows. Rosewood Heart, 12 shows. 12 shows since they played a Rosewood Heart. How is that even possible? But I mean, it's because they got all this new stuff, and they're really wearing out some of it.
This is the longest Jive Lee gap ever. The next longest was last summer at 19 shows, and the beginning of this year at 18 shows. But yeah, we've now. I mean, honestly, of the 5 longest Jive Lee gaps, 4 of them have been in the last year. So which we've seen a lot.
One of those quintessential Goose songs. I put Jive Lee, or any of the Jives for that matter, and like Rosewood Heart in the core Goose songs from when I've started listening to them. And the idea that they can go a dozen shows or more without playing either of those songs just doesn't even seem realistic. But here we are. That's how much new stuff they're writing. But if you look back 2 years ago, there was like a concern about how much new stuff they were going to write and how good it was and where all this stuff was going to end up. I mean, we talked about this a bunch. I don't know if we ever did it on a podcast, but we certainly talked about it behind the scenes about what if they don't write a bunch of cool new stuff? And then this is what happens.
To hear Hot Tea every other show until the end of time.
Exactly. And so they have written a lot of new stuff, and I don't know, it's exciting, but I do miss some of those old songs for sure.
There we go. Well, we will be back, of course, on Wednesday Wednesday afternoon at 3:30 p.m. Eastern. Talk about tomorrow night's show in Columbus, which is bound to be a heater, of course, because they're playing in Ohio. And as we know, they play good shows in Ohio.
True.
Jesse, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you guys
today.
for having me. And go see DJ Marmenthal's anytime you can. Be sure to be there.
100%.
That's just you're short on smokes.
Yeah. Yes.
Yes, I would like to shout out this comment before we wrap up. Poor Not Alone. We agree. Not Alone is a very pod endorsed song.
It is.
Big Not Alone guys. Neil, thank you for joining us from your work shower again. Everybody, thank you so much. Have a fantastic day, and we will see you on Wednesday.